Welcome back, folks. This is episode 198. Christopher Bylone did I say that right?
You did.
Bylone is our guest tonight. And before I give you the intro, I always got to check on my partner Walt. How you doing, sir?
And I'm extremely happy, grateful to be here. Looking forward to connecting and talking with this wonderful guest that we have on, learning more about him and what he provides. And I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm looking forward to it as well. Let's get right into it. So today's guest, Christopher Bylone, a belonging first leader and founder of Innovation Unbiased, where he blends data plus storytelling to help organizations build cultures people can feel, not just read about it in values deck. Ooh. Christopher is also the host of a podcast, I Know I Belong When, a show that amplifies bold voices and real stories about identity, inclusion, and what it actually takes to create a workplace of belonging. Christopher, welcome to the show. We're excited to dig in and into pay equity and how we can use data to drive belonging in ways that are practical, measurable, and human. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, gentlemen.
Yeah. So tell us, you know what? Before, hold on now. I'm got to follow our new template here because we switch things around. So before we get into that, we're going to share some news and you can jump in and comment. If you have some stuff to share, you can go right ahead. We would do a financial fitness challenge. Well, me and Walt did a financial fitness challenge. Gosh, I don't know, probably almost a year ago we started it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we started off like personal, okay, how can we save money? And then it was like for our business, how can we save money for the business and be mindful? And then we said, wait a minute, we need to give payroll folks also how to say, and you welcome to think about this, right? Because we're in the same boat, payroll and HR and everybody at corporate, they always see us, oh, you guys are spending money. You guys are a cost. You're an expense. You guys don't make any money. You're not the talent. We make the money, whoever we are. And right. And so I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. There are ways that we can help the companies save money and add to that and be of value in that respect. So whenever we can think of it, or when I remember to do my research and get my stuff together for the show, I'll come with some tips. Today I did one of them, and I was talking about this last week when I was teaching payroll. Basically, payroll folks should be tracking errors,
Errors.
right? Cost of a payroll errors dashboard or a spreadsheet or whatever that you want to do to write it down, but just quantify the corrections, quantify the errors, reversals, voids, off cycle payments, bank fees. Bank fees is a good one
Mhm.
because uh, a lot of times if you have a population that has live checks and they cash the check early, that's a cost to the company. The banks charge the companies early check cashing fees.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's little things like that. Just you don't think about it, but it's a few $1,000s depending on the size of the company. Every year it racks up. So that's just a little one. Anything you got? Anything, Walt?
Yeah, I have to something really quick.
Ooh, yeah.
Just talking about the top worries in corporate America in 2026.
Top worries?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
They are saying that there are the persistent uncertainty and economic of I can't say this word right now. Well, it's volatile.
Okay,
So
the
hear me.
volatility.
Yeah, I was gonna try to say it, and I was gonna jack it up. So yeah, the overarching theme is that uncertainty regarding policy, interest rates, and geopolitical shifts, which is a significant number of leaders who are worried about a potential recession or downturn. AI's disruption is on this list, so I found that interesting. Right, that roughly almost 40% of U.S. CEOs expect AI to negatively impact the workforce.
Really?
Yeah, cyber attacks and security. Nearly 47% of executives cite cyber attacks as a top concern,
As
particularly
they
with
should.
particularly with AI driven malware.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Talent and skill shortage. So there's worries about not finding qualified workers being a remaining challenge, right? The tariffs and trade policy, people are still worried about those. declining ESG and DEI focus.
What's ESG?
Let me see. I do not know.
ESG, so environmental, social, and governance. So that's where I sit in the world, right? The all the DEI belonging
I
stuff,
knew you was
that's
gonna
where
jump in there.
sit.
Yep. There you go.
I sit in the social
So wait,
space,
what is
right?
ESG again?
So
Say that again, Christopher.
environmental, social, and governance.
Okay.
So when organizations are thinking about kind of their responsibility, that's another word that you'll hear around ESG, and that's actually what people are shifting to because like DEI, ESG has gotten this kind of like negative connotation to
Huh.
it. And so in my past organization, we shifted the language from ESG to responsibility, which that's really what it is anyway, right? How are we being a responsible corporate citizen in how we are managing the environment, how we're managing our people, how we're managing the communities in which we operate in, right? What is our responsibility as a corporation to do right by the world?
Interesting.
Wow, thank you for that. And to finish that up, it says that almost 40% of U.S. CEOs are not are deprioritizing those type of investments for sustainability, DEI, ESG.
Yeah, because of the current administration.
Yep,
Oh
yep.
wow.
But I would just caution those who are divesting, you're going to do it at your peril. It's be careful because it's going to come back to bite you when a new administration comes in who actually cares about this topic. Oh, and if you have any type of a global footprint, most of the countries outside of the United States still care about this topic and they have governments that care. And so you need to make sure that you are still caring about this.
Interesting. I never thought about
The
that
other
global
thing,
footprint part. Yeah.
yeah, you would be surprised about how we get, it feels like the United States sucks all the oxygen up in the room, right? But people forget that there are, I don't know, how many hundreds of countries around the world, especially our European allies, who I can still consider allies, who still find this as a priority, right? They care about the environment, they care about
Yep.
people. And so I think the United States as a people does, but just the current government administration does not. So
Mhm.
that's a whole nother podcast. Um,
No doubt.
Brian, I wanted to add something else onto your payroll watchouts
Oh yeah.
because this is something that I actually experienced in the last couple
Ooh.
weeks. Not myself, but my son.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So my son started a new job,
Okay.
and the first two paychecks were live
Yep.
paychecks. And then the third paycheck was going to be a direct deposit.
Yep.
They said they mailed the check home.
Mm,
He lives at college, and right, so they mailed it supposedly to my ad. Check is nowhere to be found.
Oh my gosh.
Never came to my mailbox. They're saying it was delivered. So I think so another thing, folks, if you're gonna mail checks to somebody, okay, so they just put the cost of the stamp.
Yep.
It was the cost of the paper check.
Yep.
Those paper checks cost money,
Absolutely.
right? Now they're gonna have to do a stop
Yep.
payment on that check
Which is
number.
25 to 50 bucks to do
Some
that.
banks, right? Some banks charge money to
Hmm.
do that.
yep.
And then they're going to have to, I hopefully just do a direct deposit now because the direct deposit is now
Yes,
flowing,
they should.
right? But that's also
Yep.
time, right? They could have lost him because he was getting
I was
pissed
just gonna
off
say. Yep.
about he's not getting his check. And it's a big check,
Yep.
Yep.
right? So, yeah, so I would just make sure you actually like are really sure about where you're mailing that check to.
So it's actually a huge conversation that me and Walt have offline all the time
Yep.
to how do we solve for the live check dilemma, right? And there are a few ways that it can be done in house if you're diligent and do the go that. But we talk about this all the time, and it's it's an ongoing issue that
Yep.
just hasn't been solved
I
yet.
don't know why there still is live checks. Like
Agreed.
I started a new employer in 2023. My first paycheck was on a live paycheck. It was direct deposit.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I filled out the direct deposit form. They had a process where they basically deposited a penny into my checking account and then they withdrew the penny and made sure that all that transaction went through. And then my paycheck got my first paycheck was direct deposit. There was no live paper
Mhm.
check that was given to me. We are in 2026, people.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Sorry.
Agreed. No, I love it. Thanks for the call out. And it's true. Like I was gonna say, the employee experience
Yep.
and Walt reminds us on the show all the time that after the statistic is after two paychecks,
Hmm.
employees start to think about F this
Error.
job. I'm out of here. Two payroll
Yeah.
errors. Sorry, two payroll errors. They're like, I'm out. Yeah, I didn't get paid.
Right.
So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And before we dig in really quick, my only little news ad was that MoonPay and Deel, will let tens of thousands of UK and EU firms pay staff in stablecoins,
Mm.
testing crypto payroll at scale before a planned US rollout.
Wow.
So yeah,
Oh my
folks are
God.
getting aggressive with the payment stuff. I love it. We can't get payroll right, but we're gonna try to do crypto too. Let's try that also.
Oh my.
Christopher, we got our first one for you is when you hear pay equity, what's the most
Mhm.
misunderstood part of that phrase?
You're only talking about pay equity between men and women.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, enlighten me. So what do you mean?
Okay. So traditionally, when we talk about pay equity, we're talking about, do you have a gender pay gap,
Probably.
right?
Yep.
That's what a lot of people hear. That's what a lot of people
Yep.
understand. But we also have to talk about the pay gap versus white and black and Hispanic and Asian. And sometimes, depending on the industry you're in, you may have different pay gaps that you might not think about. There are sometimes you may have, now I'm going to overgeneralize here
Okay.
a little
Yeah.
bit, but there are sometimes in certain job functions, Asian individuals might actually be paid more than white individuals,
Wow.
right? Because they are deemed smarter in those areas, right? And so it is not just about gender.
Wow.
And also, it is not just about are men paid more than women. I worked in an organization that we had a 12% pay gap in favor of women.
Mm.
Okay.
Now, I used that as a headline, right? Like jumped all over that from a positive standpoint, right? Look at us. We have a 12% pay gap in favor of women. That's still a pay gap.
Yep. But is it?
Mm.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
So while we could celebrate it because most of the time you're hearing pay gaps and you're like, it's 30% in favor of men, right? It's still a pay gap, right? So when you talk about pay equity, it truly is pay equity. And the other thing is it's equal pay for equivalent work,
There we go. Okay.
right? That's what it really means is it's equal pay for equivalent work. So you also have to make sure that folks are understanding and you need to educate your employee population about what equivalent work means.
Mm.
Because some employees may look at somebody being like, well, they have the same job I do. Well, no, they don't. And it's not just maybe about the same job you have, right? Because the other thing about pay equity is one of the things, another term that we use in pay equity is the unexplained gender pay gap,
What's that?
right? So when you think about the gender pay gap, so we put in there's a big old formula, right? So we look at your salary and then we look at your job coding, right? Are you an HR person versus an HR person? We are not going to compare an HR person to a finance person per se, right? Or an HR person to IT. Two different jobs, two different pay scales,
Right.
right? Then you're like, okay, are you a junior person or are you a senior person? You then have to add in how long have you been in the job? Because
Yep.
if you are in the same level, but you have been in the job for 10 years, and individual is coming in and only been in the job for 2, right? So all of these factors, and organizations work with the pay equity experts, right? The statisticians, to say, okay, what are the factors we are going to use to understand what pay gap we have? And then that formula spits out a what is called the unexplained gender pay gap. And it's because there might be data points that the algorithm doesn't pick up, that we can't explain it away. We can't put in every little factor, because then we don't have like jobs to like jobs, right? If we break it, if you add too many factors in, then you're actually not comparing a pool of people to each other. So you get to this unexplained gender pay gap. And so you might have a list, right, that depending on your organization, maybe X number of individuals. So let's just take 100 people. Well, now you have those 100 people, and now it's the responsibility of the HR team to actually go investigate, why is there an unexplained gender pay gap?
Mhm.
And are there other things that we have not picked up in the data that is telling us that the pay gap is okay?
Wow.
After that investigation, if we have determined that there is a problem, then that's when we apply the fix, right? So you just can't run a pay equity analysis, and whatever the outcome is of the out on in your Excel spreadsheet or whatever software you're using, and take that as gospel. There is a lot of human touch that needs to come from it.
Wow.
I'll give you an example. Past organization that I was in, we ran a global gender pay equity analysis.
Mhm.
And if we were literally going to take what Excel told us was the unexplained gender pay gap and apply an immediate fix just off of the output, it would have cost us $52 million in 1 year,
Oh my gosh.
right? Now, and we're only talking like in that analysis, we were talking about that we were below the threshold, right? So there's also a threshold is plus or minus 5%. As long as you're within plus or minus 5%, you technically do not, and legally do not have a gender pay gap, right? Because you're given a little bit of leeway, right? So statistical errors, all those type of things. But when you went and explained it, there were things that didn't take into account of different data points that we couldn't add in, right? So this is where you have to have the human touch. So I would just, but headline here from this conversation is the big myth is pay equity is bigger than gender.
Wow.
You need to take into account race and ethnicity. You also need to take in account in disability. I think a lot of people would be surprised that still in this country, you can pay somebody with a disability a sub minimum wage, right? You can get a waiver from the federal government to pay somebody who has a qualified disability a sub minimum wage. Now, a lot of states are banning it. It's still something that employers can do.
Wow.
There's a rather big national employer who does pay a sub minimum wage. I'm not going to call them out at the moment, but they know who they are. And you would be surprised of the name that I would say, but I'm not going to say it. But yeah,
Wow.
Wow. Christopher, that was a lot of information. It'll give us a lot to chew on.
Good stuff.
Oh my gosh.
I most
Yeah.
of that, like, yep.
So you talk about belonging as something that you can design, right?
yep.
What can you give or point to one moment in your own career where that made that click for you?
There's multiple moments
Okay.
in my career, but there's also multiple moments when it wasn't clicking. And sometimes it's one of the things why I talk about it on my own podcast. We talk about the moments you knew that you belonged and the moments you knew you did not belong, and what did you do about it.
Mhm. Yep.
And I would say that probably also for me, belonging is bigger than the workplace,
Okay.
right? Belonging is something that needs to happen at home, at school, in your church, in your community center. even to yourself. How do you know you belong to yourself? And so I would say that looking back, there are times I knew that I didn't belong in certain communities. Actually, I was just having this conversation a week ago because I was at an event that was being held at a church.
Okay. Okay.
And being a gay man from the Catholic Church made it very clear I did not belong. Right? Now, this church was one of those non-denominational Christian churches, welcoming and affirming. And I actually was getting up, I was scheduled to speak at this
Oh,
event
wow.
and to talk about belonging. And the pastor of the church was welcoming our community of people who were using the church for our event. And he talked about belonging at the beginning. Then I actually had a conversation with him afterwards, going, I can't tell you how much that meant to me that one, a person of faith talked about that this is a welcoming and affirming place. And you even use the term belonging, that it's a pillar of your community.
Oh, wow.
And so it, like, so almost recently, I had a moment that I knew I belonged in that space, even though I was not a parishioner of that church, just in that physical space. I sometimes still have kind of heart palpitations when I walk into a place of faith,
Mhm.
just because of, are they truly affirming? Am I going to feel out of place? It was just that was an experience. I will also tell you from place when I look at it from a workplace, the times I feel like I most belong or know that I most belong is when my team around me invites me into conversations before I invite myself,
Okay. Okay.
right? I know in my job, when I was an internal chief diversity officer, head of belonging, there were a lot of times that there were conversations that I caught wind of that I went, yeah, I'm supposed to be there. Why are you not including the chief diversity officer in this conversation? This is
Hmm.
a problem. And I felt like they didn't want to include me in the conversation.
Mm,
So when colleagues would come to me at a very beginning of a, oh, this is an issue, it's starting to bubble, we need your input. And a lot of times I was able to probably stave off a lot of problems just by including me
Wow.
from ground
Yep.
zero, right? So I knew I belonged in that organization. So for me, it was those are the moments that I know that I belong, is when I am invited into conversations before I have to invite myself from a work perspective. So those will probably be the two examples. I have many more, but I know we have
No,
other
I love it.
conversations to have.
sharing.
So we were talking about pay equity. Now, is there a difference between pay equity, pay equality, and pay transparency?
So let's take pay transparency, or let's start with that
Okay.
first. Yes, Trade pay transparency is around, are you putting your salary bands in your job post? Are you telling the employee what is their compensation ratio? That's pay transparency. That also it is a tie into pay equity. And I would not go as far as to say pay equality. That's not a term I would use,
Okay.
right? Because as I shared before, pay equity is about equal pay for equivalent work,
Yep.
right? So how are we making sure that the pay you are receiving is valued at what your job is? And if we take all other factors basically equal, there is no difference because you are a man or a woman or you're black or you're white. That's when we're talking about pay equity. Because there are other things that go into the formula about how your pay is your pay. And so that's where people don't necessarily understand about how the pay comes out.
Okay.
And so that's why I would always talk about it from a pay equity standpoint. Um, Also, you've seen the meme out there, probably flying around social media every once in a while, that says equity versus equality. And it's normally represented by three children at three different. And so there's equality is they're standing at a fence to see
Yes.
some
I
type of
just saw
sports
it the other
game,
day. Yep.
right? Okay, the equality is giving everybody one of the boxes, right?
Right.
Mm,
The tall kid is already seeing over the
Yep.
fence. The short kid can just about see the
Yes.
fence, and the little kid can't. Well, then they give everybody one box. Well, the tall kid it can see
Way
much,
over
much
now.
higher.
Yep.
The medium kid can now see over, but the short kid
Still can't
can't
see.
see.
Yes.
Well, you take the box from the tall kid who can already see, and you give it to the short kid, and now that kid can see over the fence. That's equity. You are giving people the resources they need to be successful.
gotcha.
It may look different for the three of us,
Yes.
right? You may need different resources than I need to be successful.
Yeah.
That's equity. There's also a really great quote out there. I don't know who wrote it, who said it, who coined it. I don't know. I probably have heard this quote now 30 years.
Oh wow.
Equality is giving everybody a pair of shoes. Equity is giving everybody a pair of shoes that fits,
Mm, I love that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
right? So another way to think about that analogy, equality is giving everybody a pair of shoes, equity is giving everybody a pair of shoes that
I
fits.
like that.
That's what I would just really be thinking about is how are you looking at pay and how are you making sure that it's equitable across your organization. And if all the factors are the same, there is no difference between men and women and people of color, right? Because then you start adding the factors of, okay, so white men and black women, right? There's a huge disparity there. And if you just look at it from the men versus women, what it's at 70 cents on the dollar, right? But then when you add in women of color, that astronomically gets bigger, right? You have to be thinking about that.
Very
So,
interesting.
is that
Yeah.
helpful?
Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
Very helpful. Yes.
Yes. Heck yeah.
Amazing. So I guess from for companies, right? Where do they create the most inequity? Let me ask that in a different way. Where do companies accidentally create pay equity most often?
Pay in equity most
Yeah,
often?
pay inequity, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
New hires.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I love it. Yeah, right away.
Right. New hires. Because what you're doing is you're going out to the market and you have a team and you need to pay a premium. And now all of a sudden that person come in and you're paying them much higher than you're paying anybody else on that team. And maybe that person happens to be a guy and the rest of the team is women. What are you doing? If we're truly paying the value of what that job is to the organization, you should be going, we need to look at everybody else's pay. You don't. So we create a lot of inequities when it is around new hire compensation and promotions. That's when the inequity is built in
Wow.
because that's the time when everybody can negotiate.
Wow. You're blowing my mind here. All right.
And but also it also happens when somebody is in the job way too long. When you think about the person whose compensation ratio is at 120%, right? And do you have policies and practices that look at how long has somebody in the job and what is their compensation ratio? And do you have a policy that says if your compensation ratio is below 80%, you have to put a plan in place to get it to X percentage? I was in an organization that did that. And part of my job was monitoring. Before I got into the DEI, I was people analytics.
Oh.
This is why I'm a data guy,
Oh.
right? And why I'm very comfortable with data, why I made the belonging formula, all this stuff. Because one of my roles in the people analytics role is we were looking at compensation ratios. And so as soon as somebody hit the low threshold, right, there needed to be a plan. And I will say I benefited from that policy because I got promoted into a job. I got promoted in my role. And because there was this policy of we do not give any more than a 10% increase for an internal promotion, right? And so I got promoted, my salary band jumped because they did the right thing. They valued my job correctly, they salary banded correctly, but because of where my current salary was to the job that I was going into, I could not make that jump in one move. So it put me at a 70% comp ratio,
Wow.
right? So that immediately kicked in that they had to put a 2-year plan to get me to 90%.
Wow.
So those are other things. Like it's not just about the new hires, and the promotions, but also how long are somebody in the job. We had a cap. If you reached 120% compensation ratio, you could no longer get a raise
Jeez. Wow.
because we could just keep exacerbating,
Yep.
right? But then the other thing we did is why aren't we promoting them? Why are they so out of side of the range? What is going on? Some people, it is what it was, right? But then sometimes it was like, oh, you know what? We actually never promoted them in the system, right? They got a promotion, but we actually never put the
Oh my
HRIS system
gosh.
caught up with the person,
Oh my.
right?
Unbelievable.
So we were creating pay gap issues in our own data,
Unbelievable.
right? So
Yep. I love
so
that.
data integrity is important,
Yes.
right? You need to make sure that your data is clean,
Yep.
right? That there's right. So HR people,
Yes.
people who are entering information, you need to make sure your data is right. You need to make sure you're putting
Oh,
the person in the right job
yes.
code at the right job
Oh my
level,
God.
the right salary. Like, let me tell you, when I ran our first pay equity analysis, I thought I was going to lose my mind because of how bad the data was.
Yep.
Like, and I was like, oh, good Lord, like people are like, Christopher, you're supposed to be inclusive. And I was like losing my ever
Yep.
mind because I was so angry that the data was so bad. And I'm glad we piloted it in one country initially, because this was a global company that we were in 60 countries. And we did the first one in one country, right? So glad we did that because I learned so
Oh my.
much. But let me tell you, it took me probably a good 3 months to run this pay equity analysis because of the data was just so bad.
Wow.
And then we had to work with HRIS and the HRBPs to like, and then that led to a complete audit of, oh my God, like I opened up a can of
Yep.
worms people didn't for a very long
Yep. You
time.
preach it to the choir.
Um,
It's
Yeah.
always me and Walt
so
are
yeah,
always the bad
so
ones to be like, the data's bad. The data's bad.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yep.
Yep.
well, when I joined that company, I joined to build their people analytics department. And some of the first times I got introduced to my HR colleagues around the world was me telling them that their data was wrong.
Oof.
Yeah, that was a fun way to get.
Yeah.
And I had this one person on the team, they were there for 30 some years. And here I am, this like 30-year-old whippersnapper of a guy. And they go, who do you think you are telling me my data's wrong? I've been here for 30 years. And I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's wrap up pay equity. What
Yep.
advice would you give to a HR team that they could actually implement quick sooner than later?
So, what I would just say is beyond working with your payroll software,
Mhm.
most payroll softwares have some technology already built in to look for pay equity issues.
Hmm.
Just do a gut check. Like literally dump your data into Excel. You have gender, at least start with gender, right? So start with gender,
There you
right? That's not complicated. Start with gender and literally just do an analysis. What is it? And Excel will tell you right
go. Yep.
away, right? And if you don't know how to use Excel, find somebody on your team that does, right? And they
Ask
can run a
payroll.
formula
Yep.
and just literally do a very rudimentary, this is what men make, this is what women make, and what's the difference,
Okay.
Awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Rudimentary. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Now it'll get more complicated as you need to make sure that you're putting the right formula together to make sure you are doing equal pay for equivalent work. But you want to take a team. I don't know, the marketing team and get all your marketing analysts, your junior analysts, and go, okay, so we're going to take this is a like job, right? So everybody's doing the same job. Literally go, are men and women being paid the same?
Yeah. All right.
And if they're not, look into why that is. Maybe it's because of tenure, maybe it's because of other things, but that's a very simple thing. And then just go when you're making a new hire, how to understand how that new hire or promotion is going to impact pay equity on your team. And just pay equity amongst, even if it's a whole team of men or a whole team of women, you're bringing in this new person and you're paying them an exorbitant amount of money. Well, that's creating
Oh,
inequity,
heck yeah.
right? Because you just said to the people who have longevity here, well, we don't care about
Yep.
you. The new person is the one who's most valued.
Wow. All right.
Um,
Cool.
so, Christopher,
Yes.
what are the most useful metrics that actually correlate with belonging, and not those vanity metrics that people like to use?
So what I would say is it's you need to look at attrition. What is your turnover rate?
Ooh.
And you need to slice it by gender, race, ethnicity, people with disabilities. What is your attrition rate? That's going to tell you a lot right away because one of the things I found in a previous organization is if it was just a hiring problem, we would have been like so diverse. But the problem was is as fat and it was for our Black and African American cohort, we were hiring just as fast as they were leaving.
Oh, wow. What's wrong?
So
Yeah.
what that told me was we told a really good story. We sold them a bill of goods. Then when they got here, the experience that we sold them on was not the same thing. And so they knew they didn't belong here, and so they exited.
Mm,
Yep.
And so that is the other thing I would say to folks is stop doing exit interviews and start doing stay interviews.
okay.
Yes, I've heard that before, and it's so rare that I
Um,
hear it.
stay interviews
Wait, but when?
constantly. Like it should be, no, it should be part of your annual review
Okay.
process. It should
Okay.
be a question that is asked at the time you are doing your mid-year and end-year
Okay.
reviews. Why do you stay?
Why is okay. Got it.
Why are you still
I like that.
here? And document it, right? I think the other thing to be looking at, and I do not consider this to be vanity, but truly, if it well, unless it's not vanity, if you actually take action on your engagement survey,
Yep.
right? Also, don't ask a question in your engagement survey that you're not willing to take action on when
No
you get
doubt.
negative feedback.
Good one.
I love
Yep.
that.
Only ask questions you're willing to take action on if you get negative feedback. If you're not willing to take action on those questions, don't ask it.
No
Just
doubt.
don't put it on the survey. The other thing I would just say from a that's not vanity is just look where you're spending your money. Look who are you valuing? What is your promotion rate? What does your executive leadership team look like? Do you represent the markets in which you serve and does it represent your organization? Um, so those would probably be the data points that I would say. And what is written into your policies Do you have an accountability system to hold people accountable who are being assets? If you don't, what are you doing?
No doubt.
Right? What does your code of conduct say?
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. Man. All right, Brian.
It's on me.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
I gotta throw this joke in there. I'm sorry. My son is in middle school. MLK, Martin Luther King, they just passed, right? And he
Hmm.
says, "Wow, I wish he had two dreams so we could have 2 days off."
Oh my God.
I thought
Oh,
it was great.
wow. Okay.
Because honestly, I was scared about what he was gonna say because these middle schoolers have horrible jokes and just horrible. Most of the stuff I'm like, yo, you're so inappropriate. Like, why you got? But I think that was a fair, clean joke, and right, not disrespectful,
Well,
nothing.
I think we also, this is a great opportunity to be able to remind folks why we actually had the day off,
Oh yeah,
right?
I do. I usually if he's with me on the day, we'll watch the speech and we listen to this and we talk about it and we that's so those are topics that are very common in my household and we talk about the real stuff that yeah. So anywho, sorry, I just throw it out there. I thought it was funny. How do you combine quantitative data with lived experience without letting anecdotes override patterns or numbers override humanity?
Well, so the reason why I say I like to take the qualitative and turn it into the quantitative is because at the end of the day, we need to be able to talk to the business leaders in the language they understand, and that's numbers. And those numbers are dollars, right? And so you need to be able to turn your belonging data that's touchy feely kumbaya and turn it into actual, this is what's going to cost you if you don't have a culture of belonging, right? Every turnover costs you this, right? And so what I would say is the just pay equity, the unexplained gender pay gap is going to only get you so far, and then it comes the human touch, right? Then you got to actually figure out what's happening. And I would say the same way with data. Why was our organization, my past organization, seeing that we were hiring African Americans at such a high rate, but they were leaving at just the same rate? What was happening? You need to go in and you need to ask yourself what's going on. I'll give you another example how data turned into human stories. Summer 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, we were rolling out actually a inclusion survey in my organization. And part of that inclusion survey in the United States, it was a global survey, but in the United States, we were piloting anonymous self ID because we wanted to start rolling out a self ID campaign, get better with our data. And so we asked employees to identify on a whole list of identities. We're talking beyond race and gender. We were doing sexual orientation, people with disabilities. Are you a transgender individual? Are you a veteran? Are you a parent? All these things, right? We had more people answer the question, are you transgender? Yes or no, right? They actually, and it was optional. You didn't have to answer it. And are you a person with a disability? More than, and there was also the choose not to identify, right? So choose not to identify in trans and people with disabilities was a very low percentage.
Wow.
We had more people answer I choose not to identify under our race and ethnicity category.
Wow.
Wow.
And when we went into the data, what we found was is so because of our EEO, right?
Oh yeah, I know.
We knew what our race and ethnicity data probably looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found was is we had a basically a complete like off the cliff fall of people who identified as Black and African American. But if you took the Black and African American number who identified and the choose not to identify category and summed them up, it equaled what our EEO numbers was telling us with Black and African Americans,
Mm,
right? So, one data point. However, I said we have a problem, right? There is a problem that our Black and African American community is so afraid, so distrustworthy of our organization at the moment that they are choosing not to identify in an anonymous survey.
yep.
Wow.
Why?
Yep.
Why? That
Yep.
led to a whole like very long, we did focus groups, it was a full on like practical like crisis investigation. So
Wow.
taking that quantitative data point that we got and turned it into the qualitative research that needed to happen. And then we were starting to figure out like what is the why behind that number, right? And we got some real actionable information, and we were actually to make some real meaningful changes in people's lives.
Wow.
Wow.
I love it.
This
I
is
love
great
it, man.
stuff.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Where can listeners follow you, connect with you, and find out more about your podcast? I know it. I
Yep.
belong when.
Yep. So personally, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me Christopher Bylone, Bylone. There's not many Bylones on LinkedIn, so you should be able to find me right away. You can, the company Innovation Unbiased, we have our LinkedIn profile pages. You can go to innovationunbiased.com to find us. The podcast, I Know I Belong When. We have a website. It's called iknowibelongwhen.com. You go there, and from there, you can pick your podcast player of choice. There's 16 or 17 platforms we are
That's right.
currently broadcasting to. Name your top ones: Spotify, Apple, uh,
Amazon, YouTube.
Amazon, YouTube
There
Music.
you
We
go.
just added literally like
Good.
today. So they're all like whatever platform you want to
Yep.
watch us on, you can find us on
There
iHeartRadio.
you
It's there. They're all there. So I Know I Belong When. You can please subscribe. We're still a young podcast. At the time of this recording, we are in the middle of season
go.
two,
Nice.
and we're just chugging along. But we're having a lot of fun. It's probably one of the most fulfilling things I've done in a really long
Yep.
time. And I had a lot of conversations so far with people who I care deeply about and learned some things I did not know about them.
Wow. Okay.
And some people I've known for a very long time, and they made me gasp on air.
Wow.
Wow. All right. We gotta go check it out. Please
Yes, for sure.
listen, subscribe, follow, whatever you have to do. Go follow Chris and the wonderful people on I Know I Belong When.
And if you are somebody who has a story about the moment you knew that you belonged and the moment
Did not.
you did not belong, I want to hear it. Come be a guest on the show.
Yeah.
I am looking for individuals who are not just chief people officers or chief diversity officers or executives in an organization. I want
Just
all
real
walks of life to
conversation.
come on the show.
Yeah.
If you can tell a story and have a conversation about the moment you knew you belonged and the moment you knew you did not belong. Let's have it. I'm all ears. I think it would be a great conversation. Just be willing for that story to be viewed and listened by millions of people.
All right. Awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. So Christopher, we this was amazing. We definitely, I'm sure Brian shares the same sentiment. We definitely would love to have you back on, and because you dropped so much knowledge, I feel like this conversation could have gone on
Yeah,
much longer than what
for
it
sure.
was. So thank you even for sharing your own story and being open with us with that. And we like to play a game with our guests. It's called This or That.
Sure.
It gives listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit better. And so we have
Okay.
6 different questions. You can choose one or the other. You can say both or neither,
Okay.
whatever is in your wheelhouse. And so, Brian, you want to start it off and I finish?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mexican or Thai food?
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
DC or Marvel? As I try to glean a hint from the background, I can't get anything though. or neither?
Ooh, probably Marvel.
Okay. Belonging starts with listening or belonging starts with action?
Belonging starts with listening.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
I even say that on the podcast.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
there you go.
Belonging is not belonging is, what do I say? It's not a destination, or belonging is not a destination. It starts with listening.
All right.
Nice.
Love that. All right. Do you prefer being in podcast host mode or keynote speaker mode?
Oh, really keynote speaker mode,
Okay.
but I also really love being a guest on podcasts.
Okay. But not the
I,
host?
I I like to hear myself talk.
But would
As a guest, you don't really get to, or as a host, you don't really get to talk that
if
much.
you have a lot of guests, yeah. You
Um,
gotta do the show by yourself sometimes then, or just like you and a non-guest.
I
Oh,
do.
okay.
The first episode of every season
Okay.
is me
Okay.
doing a recap episode of the previous season.
Oh, that's so we do something similar. So that's very cool. Yeah, there's sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, not that I don't love our guests, but I appreciate when we're just me and Walt and we just get to just the banter, the kick, just kicking it on payroll stuff. Okay, cool. My bad. Go ahead, Walt.
Very good. Do you prefer a great book or a great song?
Song.
Okay. All right.
I have a playlist that, like, when I have to wake myself up,
Where are they on
I have
spot?
a
You got on
playlist that I
Spotify?
play. I should make it on
You should
Spotify,
make
but it's
one.
like it's in
Yeah.
my like, yeah,
Because you can follow, you can
but
share. Like I can follow
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
playlist.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
would
My
be cool.
my hype music. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Nice.
a good
cool.
song.
All right. And last one. Would you prefer garden therapy or a weekend adventure?
Oh, probably garden therapy
Okay.
if I was making a choice, because I'm either gardening or you're finding me in the woods on a hike going to find a waterfall.
No doubt. So it's either or.
Like, I cannot wait for it to get a little warmer because I will be out there in the woods going on a hike.
No doubt.
And I like, and I want to go to the base of the waterfall. I want to be like right up in it.
Nice.
I have traversed some really questionable trails to get to some waterfalls, and yeah, I was like, "Ooh, don't fall, Christopher, because you're gonna die."
No doubt.
Uh,
Oh, goodness. Christopher, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's
We're
been amazing. That's
so grateful to have you on.
Yep.
Grateful to learn from you and hear some of your professional and personal story. So thank you for that. And we're truly grateful for you. And Brian, if you want to end it with the quote of the
Oh,
day.
yeah. I always forget about the quote. That's awesome. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are.
mm.
Brene Brown. I like that. That's dope. Well, until the next time, folks, we love you. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check Christopher out on iknowibelongwhen.com and all platforms for the podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, share, tell a friend and tell a friend. And see you next time. We love you. Peace.